Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores and welcome everybody this evening. We're glad you're here. Second item is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Does any member have a pecuniary interest with anything on the agenda or elsewise that they would like to declare? Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, amendments to the agenda, so that moves on to 4, the open forum, and we have one request for open forum this evening, and it's from John G. McKay about the waterfront revitalization. So, Mr. McKay, if you're there, you can make your way to the microphone, and you have 3 minutes, sir. Yeah, make sure to turn your microphone on there, John. There you go.
Am I there? Okay. Alrighty. I am John McKay. I was born and raised in a small house at the bottom of Green Street, and I've lived here in this town all of my life. Having been a member of the Waterfront Committee for several years, I am aware of the recommendations that have been carried out thus far, and I'm very proud of what we were able to do. The overall plan we had was to make the beach a place where you can park, enjoy time there swimming, playing in the sand, playing sports, watching our great sunsets, walking along the docks to the path that leads through the North Shore Park and on to the Pioneer Park in Southampton, which is another lovely job done. Our intended theme of relaxation and enjoyment also applies to the waterfronts of Southampton, Kincardine, and Goderich, none of which have commercial year-round establishments on their beaches. I hope everybody goes and has a look at those 3 places. Lake Huron's beautiful waterfront has drawn thousands upon thousands of people here for many, many years. Therefore, why would we destroy our waterfront with commercial year-round establishments? That is a question I would like answered. Any comments? Any comments?
Finished, sir?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, that moves us then on to delegations. And the first delegation, come to order, please. The first delegation is Jessica Carter, and she's with the Saugeen Rail Trail Association, and she's here to give us an update and budget considerations. Jessica.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to give you our yearly update on the activities of the Saugeen Rail Trail Association. I would like to start by thanking the town for their tremendous support. Thank you all very much. We would also like to thank our partners, Frank Burrows and Lisa Billing, for their ongoing efforts as the Saugeen Rail Trail continues to grow. For those that are new to Council, we are a private, not-for-profit, 29-year-old organization responsible for the stewardship of the Saugeen Rail Trail and for its maintenance and development within the municipality of Saugeen Shores. We are funded by a yearly grant from the municipality, by Saugeen Rail Trail yearly membership fees, and by private, business, corporate, and service clubs donations. We have been very fortunate to be able to partner with the Port Elgin and Southampton Rotary Clubs, Home Hardware, Bruce Power, OPG, Saugeen Conservation Authority, Trees for Saugeen, SDSS, the Town of Saugeen Shores, and many other partners who have contributed to projects throughout the years. Some examples of large projects include the asphalt resurfacing of 2 kilometers of the trail, the installation of new lighting at the Memorial Garden, the Hurricane Hazel site, and the Southampton Rotary Trailhead Pavilion, as well as the Southampton Rotary Memorial Garden and the Port Elgin Rotary Trailhead Pavilion as well. Both trailhead pavilions feature historical plaques of the trail history of Saugeen Shores. Our original mandate was to develop and maintain an 8 to 9 kilometer rail trail bed into a hiking, biking, non-motorized, and fully accessible trail. What has evolved, in partnership with the town, Bruce County, various government grants, and many other partnerships and donations, is one of the finest multi-use, fully accessible trail systems in Ontario. We're very proud. This trail is a valuable asset to Saugeen Shores, both to permanent residents who can enjoy the trails year-round and to tourists and summer residents who look forward to utilizing the trails every year. Thousands of people are using our trail system here in Saugeen Shores, from cyclists to walkers and hikers to those in search of greater adventure. The Saugeen Rail Trail is a source of enjoyment for everyone who uses it in the community. This summer, we were asked about hiking the trail from Port Elgin to Paisley and the best way to go about it. Also, in August, the Lake Huron Grand Fondo utilized the new paved section of trail as part of the official route, keeping cyclists safe and showcasing our community. We are privileged to have such a wonderful, non-motorized, fully accessible trail system here in Saugeen Shores. Our accomplishments for the year include the annual memorial service in relation to the Hurricane Hazel train wreck's relatives and families, and a historical presentation in memory of the 2 engineers who were killed at the hurricane site. Canada Day events that promoted using the trails and increasing cycling maintenance and safety knowledge. With a sponsorship from Bruce Power and Lisa Billing, Manager of Recreation, we were able to give away helmets, bells, and lights to families who participated in a treasure hunt along the newly paved section. Our major project this year was paving the trail from Concession 10 to Elgin Street, thanks to a generous private donation of $75,000. The Saugeen Rail Trail provided the balance of $11,000 as well as 400 hours of volunteer time to complete this project. This section of the trail has had a significant increase in mobility devices, inline skating, and skateboarding, and other wheel sports usage, with all users respecting the posted "Share the Trails" rules. Ongoing maintenance, weed control and grading, resurfacing, and trail paving are all also accomplishments. This year we groomed the entire stone dust section of the trail. All this maintenance has been completed thanks to the following volunteer members: Bob Hunter, Peter Stansfield, and Bob Hutton. Partnering with Trees for Saugeen and TD Tree Days, volunteers planted 150 new trees along the trail in August. We continue to maintain and enhance all aspects of the Saugeen Rail Trail, including historical sites, gardens, murals, and all areas of the trail with a focus on accessibility. This also includes regular trail safety inspections. We revamped our website this year, as well as increased our presence on social media through Facebook and Instagram. We continue to be a member of the Ontario Trails Council, Rails to Trail, and partner with local parks and trails committees. We also continue to print our brochure and trail map every 2 years with updated information about the trail. This year, we updated our membership records to generate a membership database and update the recognition at the River Street Trailhead bulletin boards. This task was no easy feat. Purchasing a specialized trail groomer was also on the docket this year so that we can access this vital piece of equipment anytime throughout the year to repair sections of the trail that require maintenance. Rail Trail members donate thousands of hours of physical labor and time to complete projects. Volunteers are out grooming and resurfacing the trail whenever it requires it, as well as clearing debris after a storm and trimming branches and overgrowth throughout the spring, summer, and fall. Daily users of the trail and those who live close by or adjacent to the trails cut grass, pick up garbage, and keep the trail looking well trimmed and maintained. It is truly a community project. We are proud to report that our membership has doubled this year. While this is fantastic progress for the organization, the income generated is not enough to sustain our budget or future projects. We offer an annual membership at a cost of $20 to make membership accessible to anyone who would like to support the rail trail officially. We are excited for new projects in 2020 and hope to have the funds available to do as much as possible. Future projects include extending the trail to Carlisle Street and Denny's Dam in Southampton, extending the trail with stone dust into the proposed Lamont Sports Park and throughout to create pathways within the park. We are thrilled that this community was the recipient of $250,000 in the Kraft Heinz Project Play competition. We look forward to supporting this project with the addition and maintenance of new trail sections into this park. Adding stone dust on the trail from CAW Road to the county line, the reconstruction of the Hurricane Hazel site, repainting and repairing the rail trail signs and areas in Southampton and Port Elgin trailheads, a membership and fundraising drive with a focus on adding new sections of trail, including those to and within the Lamont Sports Park. We hope that community members, such as yourselves, will support this membership drive and encourage more folks to become aware and involved with the rail trail. Ongoing maintenance to the rail trail will continue with the tremendous support of our volunteers. On a more unfortunate note, I must report of the increase of vandalism in sections of the trail multiple times throughout this past year. The Memorial Garden in Southampton and Pavilion at River Street were a target multiple times this spring and summer. We hope that the installation of lights in partnership with the town will deter this vandalism in Southampton. We await the municipality's revision and review of the regulations regarding public security with the hope of installing trail cameras at our trailheads in Port Elgin and Southampton to deter these willful, destructive acts. Thank you for listening to our many achievements and future projects. We thank you again for your continued support and for considering a $20,000 grant to the Saugeen Rail Trail Association. We require more funds due to cost increases in all areas of our operation and are concerned that the condition of the trail will decline without this increase. We are finding ways to become more cost-effective, such as growing our volunteer base, strengthening relationships with contractors and service providers, and purchasing the trail groomer to better maintain the trail and service our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica. So we'll ask members of the committee if they have any questions or comments. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Jessica. I just want to pass on my thanks for all the great work you do, and I know Jerry Boucher is here somewhere this evening, I think, and he's threatening to leave Saugeen Rail Trail, after this year. But I think we're going to try and give it some stay another year or two. He does a great job, and the whole board does a great job. And, the request came before the operations, before council last week, our operations budget. It was $20,000 request, and I think it was deferred to this meeting, Jessica, because NP wanted to hear your presentation. And I for one am very supportive of any time an organization comes in and asks for 20 and you put in the other 80, 20-cent dollars. I'm good with that. So I think the work you people do every year, it seems like you're spending $70,000, $80,000 and asking for 20, and that's 20-cent dollars. For me, that's good. So I'll be supporting in the next go around at the operations budget. Jessica, just wondering the number of volunteer hours that your organization puts in over the course of a year. In your mind, do you know of a number, approximately the number of volunteer hours that Saugeen Rail Trail puts in?
To be honest, Vice Deputy Mayor Mike, we don't have an approximate number. I'd have to go back to my board and double check, but
probably in the hundreds. I don't know if it's
at least the hundreds, if not higher. The maintenance of the trail itself, especially after the storm and the winter cleanup, is very significant.
Well, I just want to thank you again for all the great work you do in your committee.
You.
Further questions, we'll get Councillor Schreider and then come to Councillor Grace.
Thank you, and through you. Thank you, Jess, for the presentation. And I also I know Anne and Joyce are here, and I think that's Jerry with the beard, but it's hard to recognize you now. But I just wanted to say, this group maintains, they promote, construct amenities, special events. They're a true partner for the municipality and the community of Saugeen Shores. So this group doesn't slow down. They get more passionate every year. For the small increase of $5,000, we should be supporting them and encouraging them to keep going and to keep passionate. At budget, we had spoke about this, so our next vote around, much like what Vice Deputy Mayor had talked about, is we'll see what the support's like around the table. But our town staff are strained. We keep hearing that from staff. So for $5,000, they're going to make a good use of this money, where our town staff are already strained anyway. So thank you very much for what you do, and I'll be supporting that for sure. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Jess, thank you, and all members of the board. Having served on the Rail Trail Board for 4 years, I saw close up the amount of work that you all do, and it's remarkable. Not just the trail maintenance, but going out there and weeding the various sites and painting signs and painting materials around the gardens. There's just so much work that you do, and I too will be supporting that $5,000 increase, and hopefully that will work out.
Further questions or comments from committee members? Well, thanks very much, Jessica. We really appreciate you coming in, and as everyone's already said, we really appreciate the work of the rail trail in our community. I get to see, from my vantage point, lots of work that goes on the rail trail by your committee members all the time, and it really is exceptional. And just on the point of the vandalism issue that you're facing, I would say that we're just absolutely committed. I'm sure the municipality is. I know the Rail Trail Association is as well, to repairing that vandalism when it happens. I mean, folks can vandalize that infrastructure, and we're just going to go out every time and fix it. And they're not going to get us down on that point. We're just going to make sure that gets done. So I hope that working together between the rail trail and the town, we can make sure that all those things that you've done, those projects you've completed, remain presentable and beautiful, and that folks out there who want to do harm to those things don't get their way. So thanks very much, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
So that moves on to our second delegation, which is from Patricia Corrigan Frank and Dan Frank on waterfront revitalization, and Mr. and Ms. Frank.
Hey, you're taking my time here. Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Thank you for allowing us, representatives of the Port Elgin Beach Preservers, to speak this evening. We are here to hopefully shed some light on our common goal, the revitalization of our beautiful Port Elgin waterfront. This has become a very divisive issue within our community, and that's a shame, because we are all in favor of beach revitalization and passionate about getting the best sustainable plan for this waterfront. In the Waterfront Master Plan of 2013, the mission statement was to enhance the quality of life for Saugeen Shores residents and visitors through the development of a Saugeen Shores Waterfront Master Plan. As has been said by so many others, this is our most valuable asset, and the decisions made here in the next few months will affect this community, its small businesses, and its thousands of visitors for decades to come. We need to make sure that changes that are made at the beachfront are the right ones for everyone and are made for the right reasons. I pose this question to you. If money were taken out of this equation, would a conference center still be the best plan for this beachfront? I can't believe if you were designing a beachfront that you would say, oh, I think we need a 300-person conference center right in front of the beach. Wouldn't that be great? Our vision, phase 2 of our plan for improvement, includes 2 common requests from the Waterfront Concept Design Plan of 2014 and the online survey of July 2019, a new family-friendly full-service restaurant and a marina shop for boaters. Current components of the space outlined in the request for proposal of February 2019, specifically the train station, the tracks, the market area, and the mini-putt, need to be cleared away for a fresh new design. In their place, the focal point of Phase 2 would be a multi-use entertainment structure for performances and special events, an open-air structure with easy access for all visitors, young and old. To augment the new performance structure, additional amenities would include a tourism kiosk, bike rental, 1 or 2 appropriate retail units, and market area, all designed with a coastal theme. Imagine sitting and listening to the Sunday evening concert at the new Cedar Crescent Amphitheater while enjoying a snack or a cold smoothie from one of the new kiosks or an ice cream cone from the Harbor Light. We applaud Council and the efforts made to incorporate many of the Phase 1 elements of the 2014 Port Elgin Waterfront Design Concept. We now have a children's splash pad, a remodeled and enlarged beach house, an extended promenade, improved signage, a new landscape path to North Shore with appropriate light standards, and several new lookout areas. Real progress has been made. In Phase 2, the newly designed restaurant and retail space, I would suggest, would run east to west along Elgin Street so as not to impede the lake view and natural vistas of the beach. Shouldn't be running north to south. Although not a high priority on the summer survey, the combination volleyball courts and ice rink could also be included in this area. The Eda Consulting Group was hired in August of 2014 at a cost to the taxpayers of $27,500 to work with staff and citizen focus groups to come up with a suitable plan for the beachfront. Presented in October of 2014, it produced 3 exciting models for consideration. Why have these plans never once been mentioned or shared at any of the meetings in the last 3 months? Council implemented many of the other design ideas, as I mentioned earlier, but I can only see one reason that these design concepts have never even been referenced in the last 4 months, and that is because none of these plans call for a conference center or event hall on the beach. This is the final design concept that they arrived at in October 2014. It is an impressive, well-thought-out design for the beachfront, encompassing almost all of the recommendations from the planning groups and quite similar to what we are suggesting. Why have we strayed so far from this plan? There is only one answer: money. Being fiscally responsible is admirable, but I was shocked on July 22nd of this year to hear council members praise a proposal of a Cedar Crescent Village, a large, commercial, multi-level, for-profit venture with a proposed 50-year lease. Right now, our beachfront is free for everyone to share and enjoy, and if we allow private investors to control what can or cannot be on this beachfront that belongs to all of us, we have given up our legacy for future generations. In June of this year, a proposed site plan was submitted to the Soggy Valley Conservation Authority. Having reviewed the site application, the final consultative report on June 19th read, "It appears that a large portion of the proposed restaurant and banquet hall, as you can see on the left up there, and Southern Access Road are largely located within the dynamic beach. As such, SVCA staff recommended that the site plan be amended to locate this structure and the Southern Access route to an area outside the dynamic beach hazard. We have kept in communication with the SVCA, and as of this date, November 25th, no amended site application has been filed with them. I wonder why that is. Mr. Jonathan Tinney, a registered professional community planner, has reviewed all of our documents and provided a comprehensive report. But due to the limited time allotment this evening, his findings will be presented at a future meeting, hopefully. A copy has been left with the clerk. The Soggy Valley, these pictures are very recent, Conservation Authority cites Ontario Regulation 16406 when preventing or restricting developments in areas where the control of flooding, erosion, dynamic beaches, pollution, or the conservation of land may be affected by development. The SVCA will determine the wave uprush setback for development, which is 30 meters from the high water mark, sometime within the next 6 months. With water levels again projected to set record levels, this is a serious concern. The dynamic beach hazard is no place for buildings that could suffer flood damage. When addressing the issue of erosion control in the 2013 Waterfront Master Plan, the conclusion on page 53 was that a weakness that we don't currently have sufficient policies and procedures to address many of the items and areas that this plan addresses. Saugeen Shores is one of only 5 nesting areas in Ontario for the piping plover, and with rising water levels all along the Huron coast, their habitat and nesting areas are becoming increasingly threatened. The plover has been here twice in the last 7 years, and the municipality has been commended by the Ministry of Natural Resources for providing adequate fencing and protection for them. As evidenced by the recent court ruling for Soggy Beach, disruption of their habitat is not taken lightly. Since the inception of our group 2 months ago, we created a Facebook group with now 765 members. Using change.org and in-store paper petitions in the last week, more than 4,400 people have signed and supported our position of no convention center on Port Elgin waterfront. I have left a copy with the clerk of the petition. I'm going to look in my magic ball and predict what is going to happen next. I predict that on December 9th, we will see the lease presented at a public forum. I predict that on January 13th, there will be a committee report, final staff report, and the lease approved, all at one meeting. Why would I think that? Because coincidentally, in Mr. Smith's email to Mr. Danini on August 12th, this was exactly the plan for September. And I quote, We have a schedule in place now for lease approval in September. September 9th meeting, Committee of the Whole, lease presented, public forum based on above. September 23rd, Committee of the Whole, committee report, final staff report, and lease approved. What's so important about this, you might ask? It's important because it was written August 12th, before the analysis of the survey was complete, before the open forum for public opinion on September 3rd, before the ad hoc committee had made a recommendation to council, and before councillors or the public had seen the final plans. You ask why people say the fix is in, the decision's already been made? That is why. I remain hopeful that the dedicated members on this council will keep what is best for full-time residents, cottage owners, and visitors to our shores in mind when the final vote is on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frank.
Okay, you wish.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. We're down to
90.
the time thing there, Mr. Frank. So we have just a little less than a minute left there, Mr. Frank.
91 days ago. 91 days ago, I asked the council to do your fiduciary duties and due diligence. I've now returned to inquire if indeed you have. Has an outside independent financial auditor been hired to check the financial and business backgrounds of all of the investors of Ontario 1512143, proponents of Cedar Crescent Village? Oh, my time's up. But that is a limited liability company with no individual liabilities. To the community, these individuals, upstanding citizens and businessmen. I know, I see, they do charitable works and so on. However, this is a public-private partnership, and it requires thorough vetting. And, you know, I could go through the list that they would ask, but my time is almost finished. But they would ask things such as, what's the past financial and legal history of all investors? Are there any banking irregularities? And so on. And has a business plan been examined and deemed viable? If council has not engaged an independent forensic accountant, what can I say? If council has engaged such, and the investigator has filed an unqualified, clean report, then council has done its duty. We can be assured that the Cedar Crescent Village will be a viable, successful venture. If the report is not unqualified, that is clean, then council must reject this particular project in its present form. The conference center, thank you for the time. The conference center, etc., event banquet center seems to be the linchpin of this project, and council has been put in a very difficult position. Accept this proposal or nothing, so it would seem. On the other side, council, you've taken a lot of flack from us and citizens who do not want this conference center as it is. The wisest comment I heard over the past weeks was, why don't they just bulldoze what's there now, cover it up, plant some trees, and let it sit for a couple of years? Take some time to think about it. So, I agree with that fellow, and I would propose that, hey, let's wait for the final plans to come in, which I hope will be in a couple of weeks. We can all look at them, and council put a moratorium on lease negotiations until the spring. And then you have an open consultation with the public, and you won't have to make any decision until we see what the water levels are in the spring and the future projections of it. In that time, councillors will be free to gather voter opinions and express their own opinions at that time once the final draft is in and make their suggestions. Please, council, please do it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank.
Thank you for the extra time, Mayor.
So I'll just, we just come to order. I'll ask members if they have any questions or comments to the delegation. I don't see any, so thank you very much. And that moves us then on to the item 3, Pat Sanagan, Canadian Federation of University Women, about the 30th Annual Vigil Against Violence Against Women. Ms. Sanagan.
Mr. Mayor and Councillors, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about CFUW Southport's 29th Annual December 6th Vigil Against Violence Against Women. Partners in this event include the Women's House Serving Bruce and Gray, the Women's Centre, Victim Services, Unifor, the Art Department of the Saugeen District Secondary School, the Kapayeshewim Shelter, and the Advocacy for Healing Program at Saugeen First Nations. Okay. Today marks the beginning of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. This national awareness campaign addresses ongoing violence against women and culminates on December the 10th on the Day for International Human Rights. On December 6th especially, we will remember that 30 years ago, on December 6, 1989, in Montreal, at l'École Polytechnique, 14 women were massacred just because they were women. According to an eyewitness account, the killer separated the women from the men and made the men leave the room. He then asked, "Do you know why you are here?" "No," one woman replied. "I am fighting feminism," he said, and then he began to shoot. Their death, in the words of a recent Global News inquiry, propelled the issue of violence against women to the fore of the Canadian consciousness, putting women's rights and feminism under the microscope. But 30 years later, to be a woman in Canada still means living with risk. To live knowing that on average, a woman is killed every other day, that once a week a woman is murdered by her partner, and that 1 in 3 women will experience some form of sexual violence over the course of their lives. In Bruce County, a recent survey shows that in the first 6 months of 2018, police services across Grey and Bruce responded to 2 calls a day related to domestic violence, and the women's shelters received 26 calls per day by people reaching out for support, the vast majority of those from women in abusive relationships. These statistics affect Indigenous women even more. The results of the lengthy inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women have actually identified that the violence described in the national inquiry amounts to race-based genocide of Indigenous peoples, including First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, which especially targets women and girls. This genocide has been empowered by colonial structures, evidenced notably by the Indian Act, the 60s Scoop, residential schools, and breaches of human and Indigenous rights, leading directly to the current increased rates of violence, death, and suicide in Indigenous populations. And violence begins early. Recently, a CBC Marketplace conducted an anonymous survey of more than 4,000 students across Canada between the ages of 14 and 21, who answered questions about school-related physical and verbal abuse, as well as sexual harassment and assault. 15% of female respondents said they have had a sexual act forced upon them, including oral sex or being forced to touch someone in a sexual manner, many before grade 7. Has there been any progress in 30 years? It's a tough call. Are we seeing more reports of violence now because women and girls are feeling hopeful that they might be believed? Or are there more acts of violence currently as a culture of male entitlement comes under more scrutiny and censure? And let's not forget that the last mass murder of women in Canada was in April of 2018, when a young man drove a van down Yonge Street targeting women, killing 10 and injuring 16. That's one reason we are promoting the White Ribbon Days campaign this year with the vigil. And I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you to take a white ribbon, to wear one of these white ribbons, and our co-presidents, Heather Conlon and Sandy Primo, will hand them out to you. This is a men-to-men campaign which describes ways that men can be allies to women by examining their own attitudes and beliefs, and by speaking up when someone needs support, and by breaking their silence when harassment and violence occur. Symbols are important. They are an outward sign of a commitment to remember and take action. These white ribbons can be our personal symbols of commitment. And on a larger scale of symbolic action, Southport thanks and commends Council and the official services of the town for their decision to lower flags to half staff on December 6th in an act of solidarity against violence against women. Oops. We can never forget the women of the Montreal Massacre because they stand as a visual link to those women whom we never hear about. On December 6th, we invite Council and all residents of Saugeen Shores to stand with us to remember those 14 young women and all women who live with violence every day. Again, the vigil will be held December 6th, 12 noon, Coulter Parquet in Port Elgin. And in a special show of support, Unifor has invited all participants to a lunch following the vigil. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannigan. Thank you for coming in this evening and for reminding us of all of that, things that we should. Certainly, the Montreal Massacre was a great tragedy years ago, but it's important, and you raised it, how it's an ongoing tragedy, and it doesn't, just as recently as last April, we had a mass murder of women, as you pointed out, and it seems not to end, and it needs to end, and so I know the town of Saugeen Shores is very pleased to have the opportunity to participate in lowering our flags on the 6th to mark the 30th anniversary of École Polytechnique, but I think also I know I intend to be there on the 6th, and I'm sure many of my colleagues, as they're available, will want to be there as well, and I certainly encourage all members of the community to be there. It really is been there a few times, and it really is a good it's a good event to attend because it's very touching, and it makes you think about those women and what they could have been, what they were trying to be, and what they did not become. And it's important to remember that. Are there other comments or questions from members of the committee? Thanks very much, Ms.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So with that, we have no public. That's the end of delegations. We have no public meeting. We have no report of municipal. Well, we do have reports of municipal officers. Jeez. And it's that moves us to 7.2, general government, and a staff report on the personnel policy and the director of corporate services.
I'd like to say just a few words before I pass the microphone on to Diane. I would first like to take this time to thank our manager of HR, who sits beside me, Diane Glebe, who helped get us here to where we are today. Over the last year, she has helped facilitate and lead the town into updating our current HR policies. She has made this process both collaborative and inclusive among all staff. A draft communication plan has been developed to roll out these changes, if approved by Council. I don't want to steal all of her thunder, though, so I'll turn the microphone over to her as she can summarize the report much better than I can.
Thank you. In front of you, I think you have the staff report and then the attached proposed bylaw and policies. So as Sue had said, we've literally spent about the last year working on this. It really came to light as we looked at our existing personnel policy, which you'll note is dated 2008. In identifying that it is somewhat out of date with respect to employment standards, as well some of the current practices, just kind of good employment practices that have evolved over the years. While the town was, I think, keeping current with how they were employing it, it didn't connect to what was written in the policy, which of course leads to confusion for staff. So with a lot of work with the senior management team, as they reviewed kind of the intent and the direction for the management of our employees, taking this as well to our employee representative group to get input, what matters to employees, what's working, what's not working. We made sure that we connected in with our local municipalities to find out what they were doing. We wanted to kind of be in line. We weren't trying to make sure we did exactly, but what are their trends? We also did a much broader review of what are the trends in employment practices, so took it outside of our own area. And the result of that were some draft proposals that, after being reviewed by senior management team, we actually did take out to all employees to share with them some of our thinking about the direction and to get their reactions to what worked, what didn't work, what they liked, didn't like, because that's important input, because these are our employment practices and it is ultimately about our workforce. So, using our guiding principles of the core values that the town has identified, we wanted to make sure that whatever was written was clear, that it was understandable by everyone, that we were transparent in how we were going to deliver our employment practices, and quite frankly, that we were competitive in the marketplace, because we not only want to keep the great staff we have, but we also know that it's important that when needed, we can attract the top talent that the town is looking for. So, with all of that, attached to the staff report is a summary of the changes to the policies. So I guess with that, I'm not going to go through all of this, but to ask if there were any questions about the attached.
Sure, I'll read the recommendation, then we can take any questions or comments from the committee. It's recommended that Council pass a bylaw to adopt the attached personnel policies. Questions or comments from members of the committee? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I just want to congratulate Diane and her staff. The amount of work that has gone into this to bring our policies up to date has been phenomenal, so thank you very much. I know we appreciate it, and I know the staff themselves are glad that we have something that's up to date and meeting their needs. So once again, thank you.
Any other, the Vice Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor Charbonneau. And Diane, I just wanted to say thank you again to you. You know, when you take a look at a 43-page report like this, that doesn't just happen, and you did a lot of work on it. And so I just want to extend my thank you to you. And I did send in a few questions, and you answered them in full. And so thanks for your great work. Yep.
Further comments or questions from committee members? I don't see any. So all in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. Thank you. So that moves us on then to 7.3, Infrastructure and Development, and a staff report on the Subdivision and Site Plan Development Guide, and the Director of Infrastructure and Development.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Engineering staff have always had a guide for technical requirements for subdivisions and for site planning. Planning has had multiple manuals on design guidelines for site plans and separate procedures for processing applications. This new manual puts together all this information to a single document, and this should make it more clear, more easy to understand, and easier for staff to implement. The technical aspects within this manual dictate how developments will look, the requirements in order to develop the sites, and this includes things such as landscaping, parking lot design, building facades, but it also gives the specifications for water mains, sewers, roads, streetlights, anything that we want to meet a certain standard within the development. Staff follow the manual when they are reviewing development applications, but we also apply the same standards to our road reconstruction projects. So today, staff are looking to Council to have your support in preparing and publishing this document.
Thank you. We'll read the recommendation. We can take questions or comments. It's recommended that Council endorse the Subdivision and Site Plan Development Guide as a guideline for the implementation of developments in Saugeen Shores. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Amanda and staff, for really, it's an incredible amount of work and detail in this, as well as the previous report that we had. In particular, I really appreciated the section that you included on design guidelines and reinforcing the brands of Southampton and Port Elgin, and the emphasis on placemaking. I did have a question about that because you specifically mentioned the brands, Ontario's Southampton and Port Elgin's Boardwalk Vibe. Do you present the toolkits or a link to the toolkits to developers when you're asking them to keep those brands in mind?
Thank you. Through you, I'm not sure about how, if we go out of our way to mention them, but they are on our website. Those design guidelines are available that way. I can ask Jay if that's something that he points out specifically, but this time I don't believe it is. It is something that we comment on. Like if it comes in, we do provide comment back if it's not matching that brand. But most of our planners in this area are aware of them.
I think, Port Elgin's is a little easier to visualize, but when you just are reading the text and it says Ontario Southampton, people who live here know what that means. But I think it's sort of a broad term, and I just, maybe if it's an out-of-town person who's not familiar, I think it'd be good to have a direct link to those toolkits at least, so they can go, they don't have to search for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments from members of the committee? Well, thanks very much, Amanda, for your work on this document. I think that the most important thing we can provide is in all these planning processes is clarity. And this helps folks who are coming to us looking to develop a site plan or develop just in general in Saugeen Shores to understand what the expectations of them will be up front, so they don't have surprises and so that they can have some level of confidence when they approach us, that they know what we're going to want from them. So I think that that's really important. Hopefully in the future, as we go forward, we can shorten it maybe a bit, and that would be the ideal thing, because simpler, I understand, and all those things have to be in there, and you've done your best to get it all in there. But I think that's the thing. It is the simpler we can make these things, the easier to understand, the better off we'll all be. So, but it's a great document, and I appreciate all your work on it. So, with all that, you've heard the recommendation. All in favor? That's carried. So then that moves us on to communications petitions for information, and we have 5 items for information there. Are there any comments from any members on any of those? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I just wanted to let Council know that our Lamont Sports Park Committee has met again since the November 5th meeting, and that in the future, an upcoming meeting very shortly, we'll be coming to Council and talking about a fundraising committee. So just to give you a heads up right now, more information will be coming very shortly, but we'll be moving forward on that.
Thank you. Further, anything else from anybody on the items for information? No? So that moves then on to report of department heads, and there's one report, an information report, update on the Pioneer Cemetery slope erosion. Do you have, the Director of Infrastructure, do you have comments?
Sure, and just quickly, this report's been in the works for a number of years, so I just wanted to update staff, or council, that we did meet on site with the BAO, the Soggy Valley Conservation Authority, and we're working through the slope erosion in that area with those agencies. Okay,
are there any questions from anybody on that information report? Thanks for that update. It's important that we keep getting updates on that one, even though there isn't a lot of actual things happening on the ground. I think it's important that we keep understanding the work you're doing behind the scenes and keep up with it. So thank you for that. So there's nothing further than on the agenda, so I'll ask members for announcements by members. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, if members of Council and the community have not heard, we had several members of our life-saving club travel to Leeds, England last week to participate in life-saving competition, and we had some excellent results. I'm hoping to have those students here at our next meeting to receive a commendation from our mayor. So I'm sure our local our media consultants will be covering that very well. And just if you see any of the kids or you read about it, it was a fantastic job. They went a long way, and just another credit to our life-saving program.
The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say thank you to our 2 legions, both Southampton and Port Elgin, for just a tremendous effort with staging our Remembrance Day ceremonies, both in Port and South. I was able to lay a wreath over in Southampton on behalf of the county, and I know it was extremely well attended in Southampton, and apparently there's a large turnout in Port Elgin as well. So just a big shout out to the members of the Royal Canadian Legion, both Port and South, for a job well done.
Thank you. No, Councillor Schreider, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I would just like to offer congratulations to the Port Elgin BIA, the Port Elgin Rotary Club, and Port Elgin Pumpkin Fest for pulling off an excellent Santa Claus parade this past weekend, despite obviously some short notice and a couple false starts. It was a small but mighty parade that was very, very, very well attended, and Santa Claus himself made an appearance on a heritage, maybe non-traditional apparatus, but it was lovely to see, and I think everyone enjoyed it.
Councillor Grace, Councillor Carr, Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to mention the parade. I was involved with the parade, and I was really amazed at how many people came out. The crowds were 4 and 5 deep all the way along the whole route, and it was a lovely evening. And congratulations to those groups aforementioned.
I just had a couple of things. It's been a busy couple of weeks, but there was two things I wanted to mention. First was on the 13th, I was at the Marine Heritage Society's annual general meeting, which was a great event, and I just a lot of actually really interesting update on the work they've been doing on the tower on the island. A lot of really important work too, not glamorous work, but work that's going to help preserve that building for years to come. And so just wanted to say thank you to them for their continued work on behalf of our community. And I also wanted to mention the 2 tree lighting ceremonies that I was able to participate both in Port Elgin and Southampton in the last couple of weeks, and say thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the business improvement areas and all of the other organizations that helped them put those on. Those are great events in our community. Lots of people come out to enjoy our downtown cores, and so I wanted to just express appreciation and thanks to those groups who make that happen. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Carr. All in favor? That's carried. We'll reconvene just maybe 20 to the hour.